Hello everyone, welcome to Art Whisperer 88. In this episode I'm going to do a quick color guide with my new Cotman Winsor and Newton watercolors. What I'm going to do is take a little bead, tiny bead, and place it on these labels with the respective colors, blend it with my number 8 brush and see the results. So let me get started. The first one I will do is Cadmium Orange. There's no particular arrangement to this. I just arrange these at random. Then Cadmium Yellow. Then a gamboge, okay. Now this is noticeably darker in this brand. Usually gamboge yellow is more egg yolk color than this. This looks like yellow ochre. So it's good to do color guides before you start. Now this is a cadmium red. Okay. Then alizarin crimson, and the next one is Van Dyke brown. Won't come out. Okay. Okay, there's some kind of separation of the liquid. It happens sometimes when the tubes have been sitting around for a while, but I think the paint is perfectly fine. Here's a raw umber. And then we have a burnt umber. This one. Then we have an ivory black. Then a cobalt blue. Indian red, then a Hooker's green light. Oh, it's coming out too much. So some tubes, they don't come out at all. That's Hooker's green light. It doesn't look light to me. Then Hooker's green dark. I wonder what the difference is. In fact, they look very similar at first glance. And then a cerulean blue. Okay, now I have to make a correction. I made a mistake. The first tube, this is actually not white, this is permanent rose. I thought it was white because of the white paper. So I'll just put this on the top. Okay. And most likely this permanent rose is what I'm going to use in my flower painting, which comes after this. So this is not white, this is called permanent rose. All right, so let's see how these blend. Okay. My first impression is straight out of the tube, it feels oily almost. Like it has a thick medium. Okay, that's permanent rose. This is cadmium orange. Okay. Cadmium yellow. Now this is also another reason you do not squeeze directly onto the paper. You squeeze it onto a palette, because what's happening now is the paper absorbs the liquid and it becomes a hardened lump, which is difficult to blend. So this is, oh, I see now. This is gamboge. It behaves like a dye. So it looks very dark out of the tube, but once it receives water, it has a very intense yellow color. It's kind of like the color of turmeric. It's a very organic yellow. This is my Van Dyke brown. It's a very beautiful earth tone. It's like a mahogany color. Okay. Make sure my brush is clean. This is alizarin crimson. Okay, now this doesn't seem to be as highly saturated, but it maybe also I didn't put too much. I didn't squeeze too much out of the tube. Now this is cadmium red. This is raw umber. This is burnt umber. It's also a very beautiful, rich brown. This is ivory black. It's got a nice saturation, and it blends after being mixed with water, and that's a good sign that the paint is responsive to water. This is cobalt blue. And an Indian red. It's one of my favorite colors. It's usually very intense. Sometimes it's called English red, like a rich red brick color. This is Hooker's green light. Hooker's green dark. This is more like an emerald green. Okay, not as intense though. It has a slight powdery look to it. And then lastly is a cerulean hue. It's a beautiful sky blue color. There we go. So this is a color guide for this small batch of Cotman, Winsor and Newton watercolor tubes. So in the next part of this video, I'm going to do a floral watercolor of a hellebore. A hellebore is also known as a Christmas rose or a Lenten rose. It's one of the few flowers that can survive the winter, and it blooms around Christmas time, hence explaining the name. So that will be the next part of this video. Don't go away. Hello everyone, I'm back. I'm going to start the flower, the hellebore, by masking off the little center part of the flower that carries the pollen. I forgot what you call them, anthers, and they look like little grains of wheat, and I'm going to apply the masking fluid. Now whatever I mask is not going to be affected by the watercolor, so it's going to remain white when I peel it off. Hopefully this peels off easily. I've never used this product before. I've seen some videos on it, and the artist who used it just uses his fingers to rub it off. I know some artists use a rubber cement pickup, but I thought I'd give this a chance and see how it works. Now I can see why the design of this has a very pointy nozzle, because the liquid is actually very watery. It's not thick at all. I thought it would be kind of like a thick liquid, but it's not. So I'm being careful not to squeeze too hard, otherwise the masking fluid will spill all over the artwork. Okay, that's it for the, I'm not going to overdo this with the masking fluid. In case it doesn't work, it won't be such a tragedy. Okay, so now I am going to move to the outer petals, and I'm going to refer to my reference photo, and as usual I will be working clockwise, and hopefully by the time I reach the last petal this will be dry. So let me get on to the next step. So here is the reference photo. Don't know if you can see this. So you can see the center part of the flower is all these light colored bits of pollen, and then it's surrounded by a darker circle of petals, very frilly, and then the outside petals are almost white except for very light border of pink, and has a lot of veining, so maybe I can come in with a watercolor pencil. I'll see how this goes. getting there. I guess it stays tacky even when it's dry. So I'm just gonna take a chance and go ahead and paint it. Yep, I can see the masking fluid is repelling the watercolor. Like a wax resist. Okay, that's it for petal number 5. Moving on to this petal here. It's also a little bit darker. So I'm gonna wet it. I'm trying my best not to over wet the paper because this is a student grade paper and it's not as heavy as the artist grade. I think even if it looks intense pink right now because it's wet, I think when it dries it becomes a little lighter. It's the general rule for watercolor. Okay, that's it for the first round of petals. I will let this dry. I'm taking a short break and I will be right back. And then later I'm going to come in with a very fine brush and wet this pencil so it has a very, to emphasize the line. Okay, so that's how I'm going to approach each petal. Now I'm going to show you how I'm going to treat these smaller petals. Now these are more deeply colored So I had mixed some rose, permanent rose, and some cobalt blue to make a purple. And here's the result. So the outer edges are almost like a dark purple, and then they gradually blend to a rose color. And here's where the frisket or the masking fluid does its work. So I do my outline, the outer layer in purple, and then I come in with more of a pinky rose. Okay, I'm back from a short break. This is the part that I am very curious about. It's been a couple of hours since I applied the liquid mask, and I'm going to see if I can peel this off. I've already tried here. It seems to have come off with no problem. Okay. Let me try my eraser. Yeah, the eraser seems to work. And if you notice where I put the liquid frisket or masking fluid, it's very clean cut. The lines are very clean and crisp. Now I would not be able to do this if I painted around the shapes. It really would be impossible. And this effect is only possible with the use of masking fluid. It does make a bit of a mess though, but that's what it takes. And I'm working in a circular motion and really pressing hard to get the masking fluid off. Okay. I do like this effect. Okay, so now this is the last leg of this long video. I'm going to start painting the little bits of pollen, and I've mixed some yellow and white. See, this way, when the area is masked off, when you paint it, it is very bright because it's clean. As opposed to these stems here, which are kind of muddy looking. I should have used more of the masking fluid, but It was experimental. I wasn't sure if it was going to work. So I'm glad it did, and I won't hesitate to use it next time. I can see how the fluid can be very useful in painting very thin items like stems, things with a very elongated shape, or roots. And another advantage of using the masking fluid is when you fill this in with color, you eliminate the possibility of bleeding because it's fresh paper underneath. There's no buildup of paint. Okay. So now each little bit of pollen has kind of like a little line in it, kind of like barley. If you looked at a barley grain up close, it has a little line in it. I think I'm going to call this Hellebore finished. It's like I had mentioned before, it's very easy to overdo it, especially with watercolor. I think this is complete, and I hope you enjoyed this video, maybe observed and learned a thing or two, and thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and I will see you next time.